They called it a summons, but the word was a courtesy. Tessith Caron had been a courtesy for 8 years, a junior cleric of the Faith of the Radiant Path whose theological education had been paid for by people she was told to think of as patrons. She had told herself, in the careful way that intelligent people tell themselves necessary things, that the intelligence she passed along was harmless. Translations, liturgical schedules, the names of archons who visited the vaults after hours. Aurantis Station materialized through her shuttle's viewport like a civilization's ambition made physical, a silver-white cylinder 5 kilometers long, rotating in the prismatic light of 3 suns, its hull catching amber and blue-white and deep red in slow waves that made the structure look almost alive. Tessith pressed her notation tablet against her sternum and watched it grow and said nothing. There was nothing useful to say. Aurantis met her at the docking bay. She had known him for 6 years as a careful man, careful in the way of someone who had learned that carefulness was the only armor that fit. He smiled when he saw her. The smile did not reach the space behind his eyes, which were already looking at the middle distance, at the iron tally soldiers standing at intervals along the bay wall in their matte black composite plate, the compact's interlocking ring sigil etched at each sternum in silver. He said, "Welcome to Aurantis," he said. "Director Kade is looking forward to speaking with you." He said these things in the voice of a man reciting a route he had memorized because the alternative was getting lost in the dark. Tessith noted the soldiers. She noted the sigil. She noted the way Aurantis did not ask about her journey, which he always asked, because asking about her journey was the code they used to confirm she had not been followed. He did not ask, because it no longer mattered whether she had been followed. She was already here. The corridor from the docking bay to the guest quarters was wide and panelled in polished alloy and actual wood, timber, cut from a living tree on a world that still had living trees, which was itself a statement. Tessith ran her fingers along the grain as she walked and thought about which world had submitted first and whether its forests were still standing. She was given a cabin at the station's outer ring. The viewport was floor to ceiling. The void beyond it was absolute. She did not sleep. She sat at the small desk and opened her notation tablet and wrote, in the shorthand system she had developed at 17 as a seminary student and never taught to anyone, the following 3 sons. Soldiers at intervals. Aurantis afraid, wood on the walls. She wrote, "I do not know what this is yet." She wrote, "I will know by morning." Sorvath Kade received her in the director's chamber at the station's axial center, where the rotation slowed and the 3 suns hung in the transparent walls like a tribunal. Kade was taller than Tessith had imagined, tall and precise, her ash-blonde hair cut sharply at the jaw, her high-collared coat of muted gold over black, catching the trinary light on its lapels, where the interlocking ring sigil was stitched in thread that moved like liquid metal. Her hands were bare and resting on the edge of her floating desk and completely still. Dark green eyes that did not observe but calculated. The faint surgical scars at her temples, where ledger neural interface ports had once been installed, caught the blue-white sun's light like old wounds that had been decided rather than healed. Kade said, "We have been the ledger for 40 years. She said this the way one says a thing that is no longer true. Then Kade turned one of the holographic displays so Tessith could see it. A galaxy map. Dozens of worlds lit in the compact's gold, their infrastructure indices scrolling beside them. Water reclamation, dome pressure, progenitor system activation status. She said, "We are the continuity compact now. We offer any world that submits to our governance framework the stabilization of their failing progenitor infrastructure. We have the engineers. We have the portable codex interfaces. We have the only functioning knowledge of how to keep the lights on." She said, The galaxy does not need a throne. It needs a maintenance contract. Tessith looked at the map for a long time. She counted the lit worlds. She counted the dark ones. She said, "What do you need from me?" Kade said, "A voice. The faith of the radiant path still commands the devotion of 100 worlds. Those worlds are frightened. The progenitor network is dying, and they do not have a language for what that means except the end of everything they were promised. You were trained in that language. You know the liturgy of continuity, of divine persistence, of the radiant path's promise that the light does not go out. It changes hands. I need you to tell them that it has changed hands to us." Tessith said, "You want me to be your theologian." Kade said, "I want you to be the galaxies." There is a difference. She said it as if she believed it. Tessith looked at Kade's hands, bare, unadorned, always visible, and understood that the difference Kade described was the most dangerous kind, the kind that is real enough to repeat until it becomes true. The banquet came that evening, 12 at a table built for 40, beneath a transparent ceiling where the three suns moved in slow arcs. The food was from worlds that had already accepted compact terms, a demonstration of what submission produced. Tessith sat midway down the table and ate without tasting, and watched the other delegates read the menu cards and understand, one by one, what the meal was telling them. Across from her sat Delegate Merath, a heavy-set man in his late 50s with deep brown skin, a short white beard, wearing the dark green formal coat of an independent systems trade representative, his world's three-pointed sigil at the collar. He ate carefully. He watched Kade at the table's head with the expression of a man who has already decided something and is waiting for the right moment to say it. Between courses, when the table's conversation rose loud enough to cover them, Merath leaned toward Tessith and said, "I am going to refuse." He said, "I have said so in front of witnesses. A public refusal cannot be quietly erased." He said, "Witnesses matter." He looked at her with the particular intensity of a man who is asking her to be one. Tessith looked at the iron tally soldiers standing at the banquet hall's entrance. She looked at Orves, 3 seats down, eating without tasting. She looked at the small card placed beside her plate, the compact's interlocking ring sigil embossed on its face, and below it, in clean trading house script, the title, Theologian of the Continuity Compact. She did not touch the card. She picked up her notation tablet and wrote, in the margin of a liturgical draft, the exact words Merath had used, "Witnesses matter." She pressed her thumb against the page to dry the ink. She was back in her cabin when it happened. The viewport was dark with the station's night cycle rotation, the 3 suns on the far side of the hull, and the void outside the glass was the particular black that has no bottom. She was writing. She heard nothing. The void does not carry sound, but she saw the movement in her peripheral vision and turned. There was Merath outside the glass, in the vacuum, still wearing his dark green coat with the 3-pointed sigil at his collar. He was not tumbling. He had been placed with precision. He was close enough that she could see his face, and his face was still furious, still the face of a man who had decided something and was waiting to say it. And then the void took him, slowly, the way the void takes everything, without drama, without sound, without the courtesy of a final expression. And the viewport was empty again, and the 3 suns were beginning to rise on the far side of the hull, and their light came through the glass in amber and blue-white and deep red, and fell across Tessith's hands where they were pressed flat against the desk. She did not move for a long time. The 3 suns rose and the light changed and the station turned, and none of it asked her permission. Somewhere in the station's interior, a door opened and closed. Somewhere, Orves was sleeping or not sleeping. Somewhere, Kade sat at her floating desk, surrounded by the gold light of every world that had already said yes, and waited for Tessith's answer with the patience of someone who already knows what the answer will be. Tessith opened her notation tablet to a fresh page and began to write. Not the compact's theological framework, not the liturgy of continuity that Kade wanted translated into devotion. She wrote the deployment language she had heard at the banquet, the infrastructure indices she had read on the holographic display, the number of lit worlds and the number of dark ones, the name of Merath's world, which he had mentioned once, which she had written in the margin before the dinner began. The portable codex interface specifications Kade had described with the casual precision of someone who does not expect to be contradicted. The iron tally deployment language she had overheard between two soldiers in the corridor. The name of the world whose timber panelled these walls. She wrote in her shorthand, in the microglyphs she had developed at 17 and never taught to anyone, pressing the stylus hard enough that the impressions would survive the tablet's surface being wiped. She wrote until the notation tablet's pages were full. Then she turned to the inside spine, where the binding was thick, and she pressed the final pages flat and folded them into the leather and closed the clasp. She thought about Valen Drace, who read progenitor script the way she read shorthand, with the patience of someone who has accepted that some languages take decades to learn, and that the learning is the only thing that matters. She thought about the relay chains that still existed, the ones the compact had not yet found, the ones that ran through death worlds and decommissioned stations, and the mouths of ash singers who memorized things because someone had to. She had 48 hours. Kade had said so. The docking clamps were on an administrative hold. 48 hours was not enough time to leave. It was enough time to finish remembering. Tessith Caron set her notation tablet on the desk and looked at the viewport and the empty void beyond it, and the three suns rising in their slow prismatic arc. And she thought, I built this. Not the compact. She had not built the compact. But the map to its throat, the translation of its ambitions into the language of the faith, the access to the vaults and the archons and the liturgical schedules, she had built that. She had been building it for 8 years, one careful transmission at a time, telling herself she was keeping a ledger of small corruptions. The ledger had opened its books, and the account, she now understood, had always been in her name. She had 48 hours of administrative hold and a notation tablet full of everything Sorvath Kade had not realized she was reading. She had a shorthand system no one else could pass. She had the name of Merath's world, written in the margin before the dinner began, pressed into leather deep enough to survive whatever came next. She picked up the tablet. She thought about what it meant to be a theologian, not Kade's theologian, not the compact's, but the kind Marin Duskwell had been without ever using the word. A person who memorizes what is being erased so that something survives after the last dome fails. She thought about Merath's face through the glass, still furious, still waiting to speak. She thought, someone has to remember what he said. She began very quietly to plan. The three suns moved in their slow arcs above Aurantis Station, and the station turned and the void held its absolute silence. And 48 hours ran like a countdown in the back of her mind. Somewhere in the galaxy, progenitor systems were failing one by one. Somewhere, the compact's gold was spreading across the map. And here, in a narrow cabin at the station's outer ring, a junior cleric of the Faith of the Radiant Path with ink-dark cuticles and a notation tablet full of everything she was not supposed to have seen was beginning to understand that the only theology that had ever mattered was this. Someone has to carry what the powerful want buried and carry it far enough that it survives them.